amazing. And we're super excited. We're going to bring him in right here, right now on the Wizard, Chicago's home for freeform. And we're just going to get set up with our camera because we're doing a Zoom, which is always fun. Let's bring him in. WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM. Hey, can you hear me, Jason?
Hi, Megan.
Hey, how you doing today?
Doing good. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm glad you're with us.
Oh, thanks for inviting.
Absolutely, absolutely. So where are you currently located right now?
I am in Boulder, Colorado, out here for string cheese incident rehearsals. We're getting ready to do a run through Chicago and Atlanta. So we haven't played since about the middle of December together. So, just anytime you're not playing, yeah, a little bit of rustiness sets in where, it just feels good to get back together. And we have such a huge repertoire of songs that it's like, we always try to make these rehearsals happen about 10-day rehearsals before we start, really touring to be in a relaxed way of being on top of the music.
Yeah, you got to ease right back into it, and I think it's a great thing to get those rehearsals. And not all bands have time or do that, so that's really cool. You guys make the time for it.
It's a luxury. It's important to us to be as strong as we can for when we get ready to play.
Absolutely. And so the last shows in December, those were where?
As we're down in Mexico, we did our Mexico incident and amazing weekend down there in Cancun. And we had lots of guests out there. We had Jen Hartswick and Natalie Cressman. Daniel Donato's band was out there. The Mo guys were out there.
No way! What a fun time!
Really, really fun time. And Chromeo was out there.
What? Oh
Right?
my gosh,
I
that's
think
really cool.
yeah.
That was all part of your of the festival, all those acts.
Yes, that's correct, and it's nice. Lots of familiar names. Chromeo's not as familiar with the jam scene, except that they're just known everywhere. But as far as being in at a jam sort of specific, weekend like that, they're not always a present name, and they killed it.
Totally.
They loved it. They had a great time down there.
It's awesome to put all different bands together, especially from different backgrounds. And you're no stranger to all different types of music. You're world renowned. You've been around and learned things from different areas. Like we're talking about places that you've been, like Mali and Africa, and different rhythms that you incorporate into your songs. Like the tune we just heard, which was really cool, "Roll Around the Sun." That's new, right?
That's new. Yeah, it's the last song we recorded. I think we released it back in March, was it? Yep, maybe wait, March of like last year.
Yeah,
Yes,
totally.
that,
But still
that would be
pretty
the
new.
last March.
I know, right? Yeah.
It's so funny to think of that. That's our newest tune. But as far as like being in the studio, yep, and that came together. It had been like a couple of years since we did our "Lend Me a Hand" album release, and it was just like, and actually that song was gonna be part of that "Lend Me a Hand" record. Um, if I gave, can I give you a little bit of background on that?
Please, I would love that. Yes.
Well, when Lend Me a Hand, when we were getting together with the producer and we were going through songs, we really didn't have that many songs together. And I happen to have this song, it's like a 10-minute, pretty epic song and doesn't necessarily lend itself to, a producer wanting to, make a song that's 3 minutes long, which was what this producer was, which was an incredible. It's probably our best time in the studio. Um, uh, but it is, and I was kind of willing to be like, well, it would be awesome to make if it makes the record, and do giving the producer the reins to make it like a different song, as far as like condensing that into like a 3-minute song, and then it was gonna be like kind of a melancholy song, and I'm fine with all that. It's just kind of like leaving it in the producer's hands a little bit, and but what happened the day that King went to sing on it, that we were recording it, King wasn't feeling good. He was really under the weather, and his voice was just not there. So it was kind of like, well, if we do it outside of these sessions, then have Kang and the producer get together, fly to some studio somewhere and make it happen. And that's just, if you know our schedules and our individual schedules and our producer schedule, it just, you can see the writing. Yeah, maybe
Of
it's not gonna.
course.
But then it made me excited because then I was like, well, we get to record this sort of epic version, which it had been a while since we recorded anything of, especially a 10-minute arranged song.
Yeah, when I played it, I was like, "Ooh, it's a nice full song. It's 9.5, 10 minutes." But the message in it is really, really good. Can you tell me how you guys wrote that song or how you came up with the lyrics?
Sure. The lyrics are by a bandmate from a band I was in called Zoo People, and his name is Brian Chapman. He's out of Los Angeles, and this was like a song. I started out writing it as an instrumental. It was actually an offshoot of like a drum piece that we would do live in during a string cheese show called Rumble, and it seemed like we wanted to maybe not play Rumble all the time with a song that we would attach it to called Joyful Sound. And sometimes we wanted Joyful Sound just to be like just organic all the way through and not go into like sort of electro land that the song Rumble was. And so I
Mhm.
was like, well, I really love the groove in Rumble, and let me just use that as inspiration to write something else that could be played as a separate song. And so if you listen to those two songs together, you can see, oh, I could see it, and hopefully in a cool way, you could see how one builds off the other. Uh, uh, then after I wrote the music to it, I wanted to collaborate with Brian Chapman, and he's just a great lyricist. And there was something that I sort of wanted to hint at. It was like maybe put a little sting in there, maybe put a little Talking Heads something in there. But I didn't want to say too much. I just wanted him to what is he hearing in the music, and then we went back and forth, and he just wanted some subject matter, and I was more like, make it, since it's an epic song and it has some African rhythms in it, and it goes to a lot of these different places. How about let's make it about just like a traveler wandering around the planet, and what's going through his head at the time.
Absolutely. And the central theme of love and that love is gonna follow you through. I mean, Joyful Sound is all about that, and I think it's one of the favorites of the string cheese fan community just because it lifts you up so much.
100.
Um, I think that's part of where string cheese, your heart comes from. So I could see those two songs definitely rolling over, no pun intended, into each other. But
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah, what a cool new tune, and it's fun to see a band like yourselves that have been since what 95. String Cheese has been around even earlier, probably.
Well, I think it was something around like the last months of '94 where it was like the first gig, I don't remember the exact date. October or something like that, or
Yeah, that's
uh
pretty
something.
close. You got it close. But yeah,
It
for a
is.
band to still be putting out new music, and embracing the new plus the old, because everybody wants the old songs they know and love, but then to
Absolutely.
like purpose it in that way too. Take an older song, bring in this new tune. Yeah, I think everybody enjoyed it. So thanks for sharing that on that. It's really
Right
cool.
on. Right
Hell
on.
yeah.
Thanks for playing it too. Much appreciated.
Of course, absolutely. So I've got the cool poster here for your shows at the Soul
Hey,
Shed
all
tonight,
right.
two
Let's
nights.
go. Let's go.
Yes, and this is January 31st, which is Friday of next week, and then Saturday night. Saturday is getting close to selling out, so people got to get their ticks.
Yeah, get on it.
Um, Tell us about Chicago. What do you like about Chicago?
Whoa, where do I begin? This
Oh,
is like
I
Chicago.
kind of put you on the spot. I'm like, wait, what if he doesn't like Chicago?
No, no, man. Chicago, there's like so much history. I had the duo called Iota with Michael Travis as well.
Yes.
And as between string cheese, like when I first got into string cheese, at that point, Chicago had the biggest turnout for like a string cheese show, on which I think it was something like, I think it might have been like 12,000, and I can't remember the building that I was at. It might have been like 2001 or 2002. And so I know for string cheese, it's like without a doubt, it's been, one of the main places. And whether we've played at the Aragon or the Riviera, all these places that we've played at, they're all like really amazing rooms. I haven't been to Salt Shed yet, so I can't wait to see what's going on there. So I know in String Cheese World, it's been legendary like that. And then for me coming through with the Yodo, I mean, you're talking coming from the smallest clubs, like the Kinetic, is it Kinetic Playground?
Yeah, that is the most
How
epic.
raunchy, how ratchet
Oh,
was that
so,
place?
so dark and raunchy and
It
weird and
was,
cool
yeah, it was
at the
everything.
same
It
time.
was
Yeah,
like, what is this? No, it turns out it probably wasn't legal or something. I don't know, but
thousand
it was.
percent.
But as far as like a place where so much music and so many from like the electronic scene was growing up there. So it's like
True.
it became just this amazing, I would say, kind of like an alternative club that built like its own thing and its own like movement there. And then as we got to the bigger venues, say like Concord, um, off the top of my head, I can't think. I know we've done the Concord a bunch. We had done the Concord a bunch of times. But and then let alone the people that are there from Chicago that are really good friends. Yeah, that's it's been awesome. Every time we go back there, it's like you connect with your crew, and you see them in different places, but then when it's in Chicago, then if you're doing a late night hang, you're going to, some private club to hear awesome music that they know it's open and they have a membership so they can get in, or some awesome late nights that really shows Chicago off at every part. There's just a crazy amount of talent there and energy. So love Chicago.
Oh, thanks for sharing that.
Oh, yeah.
I think one of your epic Yoda performances was at the Portage Theater, which is like
Of
a little.
course.
Yes, I think we talked about this like recently. I forgot about that, but people have told me about that show back in
That's right.
2011. Super
Oh
cool.
yeah. So that might have been the start of Silver Rapper too with Michael Berg
Yeah.
and Leaf. And I just remember the first time that we did it, it had just reopened. It's like what was it? It was like from the 20s, a 20s, theater. Up to
Oh
that
yeah.
point, they reopened, but they had only shown movies in there. And then the night that we went in there, somehow they trusted us and didn't know what they were doing, but it turned out so amazing. There was like 1,000 people in there. They had one security guard for 1,000 people. And
No
he was
way.
like,
What?
I'm going to sit in the alley. He said, he just sat in the alley. He's like, call me if something happens, and nothing, well, a lot of things happened, but never enough. It wasn't like fights broke out. It wasn't like there was aggressive or, people getting out of hand in the sense that it was, dangerous. It was like people just wanted a throwdown and oh yeah, Portage Theater. Woo, love it. Thank you.
Really love that.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Megan. Thanks
of
for the
course.
memories.
Yeah, no, that's like my that's the neighborhood I live in now. So, and they don't really show much there. There's sometimes like a line across, the streets and you're like, who's playing tonight? But it's like movies, really. And yeah, I
Yeah.
love that you guys showed up there, one security guard for 1,000 people.
Once, once a year. They had a few more the next time we came in because legally, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, right.
It
Correct.
was, but that's just one of those things. It was just like how it was combined effort. How do we just make something happen? Like we didn't necessarily want to go to a club that didn't get like this new music that we were doing. So and the promoters that we were working with completely got it and like this is how we can make this happen. Okay, if none of the other venues will have us or they just want to take too much of a cut or they're not interested in it, it sucks to play for in a venue that is like just puts you on the calendar versus like I'm excited about the show. And so
Right.
these guys were trying to prove themselves. We had one show to knock it out of the park and yeah, they knew that there was a scene for it, and they bet on themselves, and they bet on us, and boom.
I bet just right. I love that. That's amazing. Tell people Tell people what Iodo is and how it differs from string cheese.
Oh, Yodo is two-person all improv electronic group, and we did our first shows I think back in 2006. And it's funny if we were like two people. You see it so common where maybe it's two musicians and one of them's on drums and the other's on like keyboards and guitar. And we use the computer as another instrument to record into it live to create all of the other parts that you were hearing. So in the moment, Travis was just creating all of the melodic content in the moment, and I was doing drums and vocals, and then I was doing live remixing because I had control over effects that were happening on the computer, and so all these delays and stutters and beat repeats, and we did our I think we did our 10,000 hours, when
Yeah,
it's
I
all
think
said and
so.
done because we played so much early on. So unfortunately, we were a pandemic casualty, so we're not doing EOTO anymore. But it is to look back on, places like Chicago, where if I just sat down for a minute and thought of all the venues, I can remember some stories from like, just about every one of them. So one time at the Concord, I think a little piece of the ceiling, fell down because it just had the bass so cranked up. And those are you know, it, those are kind of band victories when those happen, actually.
Yeah,
You
push
know,
through,
oh
make it
shit.
happen.
Well, when nobody gets hurt, it's a victory.
Absolutely, absolutely. If you could incorporate the falling ceiling into the music, even better. Oh,
That's
I love.
like did you ever hear about I think the George Clinton story is that he tells the club to shut the power out on him at some point so he could go to the crowd and be like, they shut us down, man. They should get the crowd totally on their side. It's like, but we want to play more. Don't you want us to play more? Yeah, yeah. And then they turn the lights on. It's like, ah.
Oh my gosh, I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So if you can fabricate the ceiling falling and you're like, oh man, yeah.
Woohoo! I love that. I love that. It takes those little happy accidents to then make it into, a replay,
Yeah,
which I love.
exactly.
So not only are you in string cheese and you were in Yoda, you have a after party coming up too after the first night of string cheese at the Point. Tell us about the League of Sound Disciples.
League of Sound Disciples. All right. Well, it's a new adventure, and I'm feeling more. I used to be a little bit hesitant. It was a little bit scary trying to do those first shows, and because no matter how much you practice and set up things at your home, when you get like in a club scenario and there's people there, and then the way the lights are, you don't see your gear as well, and then maybe some stuff isn't working that you don't necessarily get a chance to fix. You just have to roll with it. And I was, definitely out of my comfort zone for probably the first 5 or 6 times that I did it. And now, especially, I did it just down in Mexico, and it feels like it's really come together in the flow and the type of music that I'm making. And so it's an all original music project. And the thing is that the way that I've put the music in the computer is in stems, which means I have the drums on their own that I played, the bass parts that I played, and then say three more different keyboard parts and maybe an effects section. And then I take all those, since they're all separated, I can affect any of those stems. So it's back in the 70s in Jamaica, and they still do it. They still do it now, but in the 70s, it was king. They would have Jamaican dub music, and the Jamaican engineers from like that worked in the studio, they would take songs and a lot of times pull out the vocals from them, and then they would take all these different effects that were in the studio boards, like delays and reverbs and stuff. They would open them up and put different capacitors in there, and they would really tinker with it. Then they would do a dub set, which meant they would take mostly a lot of times an instrumental track, and then they would put effects on it live. And so it sounds like they're doing that. They're actually doing like a live performance with live engineering. on the spot. So taking,
Oh,
yeah, so taking even a backing track, like let's just say a Bob Marley backing track, and then taking just letting the bass and the drums settle in there, and then occasionally on a snare drum, they would put like a splash reverb on it, like a spring reverb. So instead of it going cat, it would go
ooh,
and do
that's
something.
cool.
And that, anyways, I love all of that, but I wanted to do that with my own music and do it with modern sounding music. So like the type of styles that I have some reggae stuff that is a little more similar to art than old Jamaican dub.
Oh, cool.
And then I have some stuff. There's a producer out there named Rez that I'm a really big fan of. She does this mid-tempo, deep bass sounding music, and then I like to go into some like sort of funk stuff, like the Funk Hunters, uh, and and uh, and then I'll go into some like house music, and then I'll go into some UK garage. That's my new thing. And then sometimes I'll do some dubstep and go into some drum and bass. So it depends on, uh, and this is the part I love about it. Depends on how the crowd is, and so I can switch up in the moment and then work my way through. And then the main feature of League of Sound Disciples is having guests up, having live musicians play. I'm a live,
Yeah,
musician at heart, and so
totally.
and since I play percussion, I've always got percussion on stage. Always ready to do like some kind of drum breakdown, and and then whoever's on stage is just it's really cool to see musicians that have been that I know, say from the jam scene, all of a sudden they're playing with electronic tracks behind them. And like I had Daniel Donato sit in Mexico,
Whoa.
and he had never done anything like that before. And he's like, what do I do? What do I do? I was like, you play your ass off like you do, like you normally do.
Yeah,
And then it's like it's just a different style with some different sounds coming at you, and just do what your ear tells me. And them doing what they do is what makes every night super unique for this project. So that night on Friday, January 31st, we're gonna have Kofreshi down. Kofreshi, awesome producer from the Chicago area, and he's a drummer. He's gonna bring his unique like electronic drums down. And then we've got Joe Marcinek, who I've gone. Joe Marcinek's another guy. I've probably been through Chicago with him like 6 or 7 times,
oh
and
yeah.
he's a bro. And I love that we were able to get him to come up. I think he's bringing his keyboards down too. So
Oh,
uh,
nice.
right? Not a lot of people know that he plays keyboards, but he's done this gig probably more than anyone else with me, because we'll do it on the road, in the middle in between his projects. And then we've got Destiny, the saxophone player from the band Sneezy, also a Chicago band.
Cool. I like
So
that band.
yeah, and she's awesome. She's super amazing player. And she sat in with me on this project in Asheville last year. And so I know she is totally going to bring it. So anyways, I get it with this project, get excited about me doing original electronic music and being able to dub all those things out live in the moment. And I'll play some synths too, but having all the live musicians is just like, oh, now we're partying, and we can stretch these tunes out. Like normally, if I do a regular DJ set, you're switching up tunes every 2 minutes and stuff like that, and it's such an ADD type of you know process. And then this, like Jamaican dub, we could just sit in something for 5 minutes, and because there's just so much going on and so much interaction, that we can hang out for a while and take our time.
That's amazing. I love that. So you somehow have enough energy to do a whole string cheese show and then go straight to another venue and do this. How do you get your stamina? How do you keep your just going? How do you do that?
Yeah, well, the main thing is, I get revved. I've done if there's a show to do, like I get revved up for it. Even if and I've been there before on like no sleep, but we're getting ready to do even whatever with sound check or something like that. But especially like right when you're in performance mode, like it's go time, and it's like I think I've just done it so long that either I don't think it's an adrenaline thing because I don't get too hyped on it. It's just like, all right, time to go and let's go. And you got to be
Yeah,
ready from note one. I don't really believe in like, okay, let's warm up, a couple songs, even though as a band we do, just because we're getting our sound together in the room and stuff like that. But
sure.
individually feeling like I want to be, sharp right out of the gate. So that carries over. If I know I have to do an after show that night, it's like you think about everything planning a little bit early, getting gear to where it has to be. When if that's out of the way, I know like right when I get to that gig, whatever little things I have to do to set up, then I'm ready to go. And then when it's time, then the energy, all the other energy kicks in, and I know I'll just rest later. So,
Yeah, yeah. No, it's amazing. I love that. And I love that there's always something fun, if it's not exactly string trees related, which I love, there's always some fun after party. Like you're saying, what happened in Mexico. These bands all you guys all support each other and it's really cool. So I'm excited like Joe Marcinex on this gig. I've seen you guys do the League of Sound Disciples. I think
oh,
after your Riv show, you guys were right across the street at the Baton Lounge,
that's
and that
right.
was super cool and different. So I think people are going to really enjoy that at the
Yeah.
Point, which is a newer venue. It's been around a few years, but it's a great place. Shout out to Stephen Contreras who does a lot of stuff there. Hell yeah, I love it. And what would you, after all of what you kind of said, if somebody wanted to say, well, what kind of music is League of Sound Disciples? Is there a genre or a little branch that you put it under?
Ooh, oh, yeah, I do. I have a name. I haven't said it as many times. Psychedelectronica music.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, psychedelectronica music.
Electronica.
And I got to remember to like mention that more because like when you're like, oh, what kind of music is? I should have led with that.
No, it's good. It's good. Your friend
Psychedelectronica.
Carrie gave me that tip off. So
Yeah,
shout out to
she's the
Carrie.
best.
She's
Yeah,
the best, man. She knows everything. And
it's really.
there's fans like that are like brains or automatic promoters where they just love what you guys do and follow you, right? Like the fans are so integral to all of this.
Yeah, and then there's a difference also because there's sort of levels to that too. Like Carrie probably knows more about string cheese than me, probably, as far as like where we played songs and when we did that and stuff. And but she's also just like really cool because you can have some people that is so some people will actually like talk through you because they might get be so excited about talking about string cheese that it,
True.
and maybe it's a nervousness too, but it's almost like they talk through you and you don't feel like you're talking, that they're talking to you. It can be like that,
Yeah.
so you love it all and appreciate that there's awesome fans out there who come out to support and especially string cheese with its we have such a wide musical breadth, between going from bluegrass to electronic music to funk to reggae to island music to mashups of all of the above to rock and for like a musical fan to want to um, have that scope of appreciation. That's some really big listening ears and musical appreciation ears. So we're honestly as a band that's why we want to practice so hard because we want to make it
Yeah.
all sound good. And a lot of times when you're not, if you're playing country music, a lot of times people are just playing country music and they can be masters of that. And when you're playing a lot of different genres of music, you have to keep up on all you have different skill sets for each genre of music, and you sort of have to lend a different ear to it. So you put yourself in a different mode, but you're also the String Cheese Incident, the band that ties it all together, and
Yeah.
so you want that represented in the best way.
Absolutely. That's what the fans are for, is to give you that
Yeah.
feedback. And I know you guys take that feedback too. Like you'll talk to the fans and, give people what they want, which is awesome. That's why you're out in beautiful Boulder getting ready for these shows.
Oh
Just
yeah.
to remind everybody, we're talking to Jason Hann of the String Cheese Incident. We got
Hey.
two shows coming up at Salt Shed, which you're gonna love. Salt Shed. It's amazing. It's the old Morton Salt Factory turned into a venue, and it's
Ooh.
totally first class. You feel like yeah, there's like guitar shop in there. There's multiple like eateries. It's cool. They're gonna treat you like kings. So I think you'll really enjoy it.
Super excited. Been hearing about this place for a while now.
Yes. So the 31st of January. Can you believe we're already at the end of January? That went like that.
Man, I live in Los Angeles, so it's like
Dude,
it's been just the range of emotions and like things that have happened already, before before
pretty
the
heavy. Yeah, before the inauguration, right? And that came. How
yeah,
has it
like
been out there? I know it's been a little rough. You've been, helping friends, right? And people have been struggling.
yeah, well, it's more on our part. We've just been trying to be like there for whoever's been displaced that we know personally. So many homes burned down and like just checking in with them and most of them they have enough resources to either their insurance company immediately gave them or told them they would reimburse them for wherever they got a place to stay, or they went and stayed with some friends, having to evacuate because it was hard to tell who was evacuating when. It was just like sort of a frenzy of everything at once. Or you'd talk to someone and they hadn't evacuated, but 5 hours later they evacuated, and you thought you caught up with them. And it's like, what?
Uh,
And above all, just my most of my friends did have the resources to be safe, and that's what you want. And one thing at least that happened when all this craziness was going on, since the cops were so preoccupied, like we had one of my cars stolen, and that was on the
what?
street. It got returned
No.
a few days later, but it was just a beat up car, but it got me everywhere, and I could throw gear in it, and it was amazing. But it's like the thieves are out, and you had to look out for your neighbors, or especially in thinking about evacuating that you had to think about. Well, if you evacuate too soon, then the area looks abandoned, and that's like an invitation for people to thieve. And
Yeah, going and
the
take things. Jeez.
yeah, yeah, and especially with the car getting stolen, that
Mm.
it was like on high alert. But and then we stayed packed, ready to evacuate for about 4 of those days, and then one day it came close to wanting to get out, and we've just watched the news a little bit more and sat it through. But above all, it was really amazing to see things like working, just like the for whatever you heard, there was so much live feedback and things that you would see on the local news, which I usually turn out. Local news is just so much fluff and sensationalized.
Ooh.
It's you know your bathtub could be killing you, stories and stuff.
Yeah, right.
And
Right. You
then
tune
this
out most of the time, right?
Oh my, and then this
Yeah.
one was, yeah, and then this is like every time I tuned in, all of a sudden, even if a beautiful weather girl is on, or guys, there's not much to talk about in the weather, and California, well, sunny again.
Yep.
Yeah,
Look at
back
like
to
like
you.
David Lynch was saying, he'd look out the window every day and say, "Well, it's sunny and blue skies in LA every day." So that's
Exactly.
a change of pace for you guys to have any sort of, this huge thing. Like this is huge.
Well, all of a sudden, all these weather people were like off the cuff, like geniuses, just talking on the fly about what's going on with the Santa Ana winds and the fires, and what is it, what the weather patterns were, and what was coming, and their forecasts, and those were so important to how you thought about how you were going into the rest of the day, so, or the next hour even. And then also seeing the helicopters, the news helicopters up in the air, but staying out of the way of the firefighters. And they would constantly be scanning live. And it's like, oh, we see another hot spot. We should tell the firefighters about that. They tell them about it, and firefighters would move into it. And the confidence that it gave you, that that the firefighters are doing the absolute best that they could, not being able to do anything with those winds. They were spectators too, and to when things let up, how water was getting everywhere. It was just and then talking to some cops when my car got stolen was that the cops are out there too, but they actually don't have any, breath mask protection or
Oh,
oxygen, right? So they're in the middle of it, but there's going to be years later when a lot of these these people that were in the middle of it are going to have like lung problems. And anyways, I don't mean to bring down the show, but those
oh
just
no,
the
no, no. I
realities.
think
And yeah,
yeah. It's good to hear from someone who's there also in the music community and who's been
yeah.
dealing with this because a lot of us heard about it and you know how the news is and with the inauguration, all these things, it's like things are hot for a day and then it's like, well, it's not over. The destruction is still there. People have literally lost their homes. And I think in the Midwest, we don't really understand what a wildfire is here in Illinois. We've never experienced something like that. So it's okay to talk about that deep stuff. Don't worry, we'll come back around and give it
Yeah.
a
No,
fun
I love
fact.
it, but it's more in the interest to find like the joy, the amazing heroes that were dated, thousands out there every day and operating at this high level of care and empathy to save, the homes. They were saving expensive homes, and they were saving they were saving the smaller communities, that the poorer community, everyone that was affected by a fire. There was a it felt like there was an urgency about it all at the same time, and to see how effective things were working in light of that. Like I was in the Navy, and I was on
Hmm.
like a 300 foot, 600 foot ship. 300, I was on a frigate, one of the smaller ships in the
Okay.
Navy, and we had a couple of fires break out. And it's just like when stuff happens, and it's the only thing, you don't have resources you could even call in. But if all of a sudden a hose doesn't work for whatever reason, or something happens like that, you have to adapt in the moment. And no matter how well you were prepared for it, is things go like sideways, and you prepare for your mental state for things going sideways. And when they do, it's like you don't attack. That's not the time to try to attack to see what's going on. You make a quick decision, and you just saw that happening all the time, that those guys adapting and looking out for the community. So anyways, give them some praise. Yay.
Yes, let's give them some praise. Seriously. And you too for helping people out and being a place for people to stay. And just, I think it kind of mirrors back to the music community. Like it takes the audience, it takes the other people outside of being, the firefighters and the people that actually work in helping people, like the little guy, to be like, hey, I got you. We want to help any way we can. And you see that humanity come out in these type of
Oh,
events, you know?
that was the beautiful part. People wanting to volunteer to go from, their safe zone to bring food and clothes to evacuation shelters for people who actually had no place to go and were hungry. And you see they're having almost like the people that are working are trying to have like little parties in the parking lot. Say, hey, we got tacos.
Yeah,
Yeah.
come and come and have some joy. Come and,
Come
come and
on.
relax and
Yeah.
enjoy
Something.
yourself because
Yeah.
it's hard. Are the fires out or I mean, obviously it's not everything, but is it slowed down?
Well, right now there's one like in the North LA area that's gotten really bad. I think it's up to 10,000 acres. And, someone, Billy actually just sent me something on that this morning. I hadn't actually checked, but except I looked at the map and saw that it was happening. And, but I haven't seen whether it's near residential community. So right after our interview, I'll probably look at that because I have some friends in that area that I'll at least call, see what's going on.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that with us. We're talking to Jason
Hey.
Hann right now, string cheese incident, and giving us the lowdown on what was going on in LA. I'm so glad that we could touch on that because, yeah, again, it's good to have like a first hand idea. And I know there's a lot of organizations that are helping. Do you know of anything that we could donate to or to help people?
Oh wow, that's off the. Let me see.
And
Uh,
take your time. You could also give it to me afterwards and I'll plug it
let me
later.
give it
But
to you. Let me give it to
yeah,
you afterwards and
yeah,
stuff. There's
sure.
definitely a music cares.
That's what I was
Off the
thinking.
top of my head, music cares. They're doing what their title is. They're in,
Yes.
so I know that they're helping out. There's another musical organization. Let me think. One second, one second.
Take your time. I'll read about Music Cares. We got
Okay.
musiccares.org. It's the best place to go. It says to get help from the greater LA fire relief. And we're here for the music community. So if you need help or support, they can help you at musiccares.org.
Hey, that's good. And I'm not ready. I'll send it to you
Don't
after.
worry. Don't worry. I love it though. Thank you for getting that, to us whenever. A couple more things and I'll let you go since I got you.
Uh,
I would love to talk about the well, first of all, you're in Boulder now. You were in LA where you live. You grew up in Miami though.
uh,
And your father was a pretty prolific person to get you into music, right? So tell us about Miami and your influences.
oh yeah, well, Miami was first, probably, definitely a giant influence. I'm half Colombian. My mom's from Bogota, and she moved with her family to Miami like in the 50s, when there weren't that many Spanish speaking people in Miami. So she got made fun of her accent like all the time, and
Oh
so
man.
that was kind of a reason she committed, like one of the things she committed to. She's like, my children will not have accents. And that was like a thing of hers. But yeah, and my dad yeah, was a great musician. He's still alive. He doesn't play anymore. He's retired. But growing up, he was he played guitar with a guy named Wayne Cochran, who's Wayne Cochran and the CC Riders. So Pearl Jam
Oh,
or Eddie Vedder did one of Wayne Cochran's songs about wow, about a kid losing his life or something. I I forgot. But in the '60s, he had a big giant white pompadour, white guy. It was all white band, but doing music like James Brown, and they were so legit in Miami that they any any of the big soul superstars that were going through Miami would sit in with the band, like Otis Redding and
okay.
you had just anyone coming through. James Brown would sit in, and then when they would go to Las Vegas, it would be the same. They'd just have a who's who of soul singers come through and front the band. But Wayne on his own was this crazy out there, you know, white dude from Georgia who could do like all the James Brown like footwork and stuff. And then he'd sing like a soul song, and if the ceiling was low enough, he'd like punch a hole in the ceiling to and make people cry, And he was one of
I
those guys.
love it.
Took it to a theatrical level. All the band members had like dance choreography and stuff like that. And they became the house band for the Jackie Gleason television show back in the
Oh, cool.
60s. And so my dad did that, and my dad was also really good friends with Jaco Pastorius, the legendary bass player from
Dang.
Miami. And my dad knew Jaco when my dad and his brother used to do a trio gig in an area called of Miami called Overtown, which is kind of like the Harlem of Miami back in the 60s. Uh,
Okay.
and uh, and Jocko used to take a bus. I think he was only like 14 years old. And he would go into this club that he wasn't supposed to be in. And that's when Jocko played drums. He hadn't started playing bass yet.
Oh,
And
cool.
he would go into that club and just watch my dad and his brother play. And he'd say, "One day I'm gonna play in your band and stuff." And they became friends. And then he had this meteoric rise before he was in Weather Report. He was already well known in Miami as just being a badass, and he ended up joining Wayne Cochran's band. And
Wow.
that was right when my dad got out of Wayne Cochran's band. Then Jocko joined that band.
Whoa.
Yeah, so dad knew him like that, just on a friend's level, and it was before Jocko got into drugs and stuff. So, and then as my dad progressed, he became almost like a local Jimmy Buffett figure in like the early '80s, where Jimmy Buffett he'd play a lot of island music. My dad's second wife was from Trinidad, so
Okay.
he would play a lot of soca music and a lot of calypso music and reggae music, kind of early on where he would play, and then he would play a lot of rock music at night. So if I would go to see my dad play, I just saw this entire, gamut of music, and it widened my taste buds. So I was hearing reggae at the same time I was hearing rock and roll, being like 11 years
Wow.
old, you know, it's,
Cool.
and, yeah. And before that, if my dad played music around the house, it was Weather Report because it's Jocko's his friend. And
Nice.
and it's amazing music. But then on my mom's Colombian side, she would play like all the Brazilian and South American music, all the time. Just around the house when we're eating. So all these flavors were always happening, and my mom's a great dancer too. So if we
Cool.
would go to if she would take me and my sister to like Calle Ocho and Little Havana, like street festivals and stuff, and it was great to just always have something going on where there's like different types of music. And then on my dad's side, getting to see his band play for so many hours during the week, my mom was like, well, you can go over and see your dad play music, but you had to have your homework done, but if you were going to do it, you had to do it there. And, and I stuck to the deal. So I got to hear a lot of music. I got to see a lot of drunk people, and that's also Miami in the 80s. So there was a lot of, stuff that I probably shouldn't have seen as like a kid in a bar. But
Yeah.
but the people that mattered, the guys in dad's band and my dad's friends and the owners and stuff, they always like looked out for me because they're like, not really supposed to be in the bar, but I would sit in with my dad, so I was like an entertainer, and I was allowed to not hang out at the bar, but able to hang side stage.
That's amazing. How cool. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
crazy, crazy way to be involved with all the different genres of music and have it from both sides of the family. Um, Wayne Cochran, I love that. I'm gonna have to look that guy up. But I think it was like maybe Last Kiss or something, the Pearl Jam. Maybe people know that tune.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
yeah, I think that's
that's
the
right.
tune. But and then I'm like, oh, okay, I knew about
Right.
this. I mean, what a cool story to be involved in. And did you ever play with your father or do some gigs with him or
Oh yeah, that's how I learned. I was 11 years old when I was my only musical background up to that point. I played, so I kind of had to take piano lessons and I kind of liked it, but I wasn't really that good at it. My sister
right?
was way better at me than it is. Like, oh, okay, show off. No, I was happy with like my sister's so talented like that. I was like, go sis. And and then I was in all these like kind of honor choirs when like in elementary school, and but those almost seemed like you're hanging out like with your friends, and it was such like a work ethic. It wasn't like I was just singing songs in the choir songs, but I wasn't like trying to sing like songs that I really like to listen to, like rock music and stuff like that. So I never really thought of myself as a singer. And then when I started hanging out with my dad at his club at like 11 years old, I would do the homework. And since I was sitting sort of backstage, the only person I could really see doing what they were doing was the drummer, because I could like look to the side and see everything that he's doing, and I'd only get the back of my dad playing guitar and the bass player, and I couldn't see what was going on with the keys. So little by
Yeah.
little, I'm doing my homework and like tapping my fingers, and the drummer would see that I'm interested, and he's like, "Oh, come on over." He started showing me things on the break. And then just little by little, one of the times they were getting ready to start the set, and the drummer motioned me to come over, and he counted the song out loud, and we started. But I was playing drums, and my dad didn't notice until he got through the first verse. And then the drummer tapped him on the shoulders, like, look back there. And my dad went, what? And then they're like,
Oh my
yeah, let's get
gosh.
him some lessons. So it was, that was the start of it. And by the time I was 13, I kind of memorized my dad's repertoire, and I was playing. He would get me, to substitute for his other drummers because he knew I knew the music, or if he had something where
Wow.
if he got a gig where the other drummers were booked, he knew that sometimes I played hooky from school to go do a gig. 'Cause
Cool dad. I
yeah,
love
I was
it.
cool dad, but I was also gigging on prom night in high school. It was like I'm gigging. That was way cooler
Yeah,
than going
I'm
to
cool.
prom.
Yeah.
That's
Come to
right.
my gig and get some
Yeah,
popcorn
yeah.
sandwich. Yeah.
After your little dance, coming out to my gig.
Come to the real dance. I love that.
Yeah, yeah. Anyways, but that the total music absorbed through that, and my dad had some of the best studio musicians in Miami playing with them. So I've learned from just really amazing players that I still, whenever I see my drum teacher earlier, I'm like, thank you for teaching me how to like read music and teaching me how to teach myself. Like the biggest gift that any teacher can give to someone is teaching them how to teach themselves. And that's been like this. It's unbelievable how much, I was probably with that drum teacher for about 2 years, who was one of my dad's drummers. And it's like for forever that kind of learning process. And it's amazing. People can tell you what to do and tell you blah 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 blah, but when they are able to teach you not only a certain way to do things, but let you have the ability to understand the process of that, and then you can take that upon yourself. It's really beautiful. Sometimes I'll be in the middle of practice. I'm like, thank you. you know?
Yeah, right. Yeah, you have to look around and really smell the roses sometimes and be like, I don't know, I know how I got here. I have to remember how I got here and
Yeah.
thank the universe that I did and thank the teachers and your father and everyone else. Does he
Absolutely.
ever come to string cheese shows or has he been out for some of those?
Yeah, but if I played in Florida, we would do like a Halloween in Florida near Jacksonville, and
Yeah,
come up for that a couple of times. And he's came out to Red Rocks one time, and he's going to come out to Red Rocks this time and this year. And I'm super excited for it. We'll see. He's a
cool.
lot older and he's having some health things, but it's I love that he's up for coming out.
That's cool. I was gonna say, wow, those are like not hard venues, but those are like treks, Red Rocks and Halloween to get to. That's not just like walk in the venue and sit in the seat.
Oh yeah,
You're definitely
that's what
trek.
I keep saying, just like gear up for it. And it's like the
Yeah,
altitude
right.
alone just kicks your ass.
It
So,
really does. It really does. And just briefly, if you just want to tell us a little bit about studying percussion in Africa and some of the drums that you use and the drumming, that would be awesome just for our drummers and friends who would love to hear that.
oh wow, wow, that's a deep,
Quickly.
deep
Right. I
quickly.
mean, you
Go.
take as long as you need, but yeah, whatever you can comment on. Was that because of your like Navy and where you like how did you decide to like go from, here to Haiti and Korea and all these different places to learn?
Oh yeah. Well, the reason I went into the Navy is because I actually didn't want to do music, and I tried for like full scholarships. We didn't really have money
Hey,
in the family to take out any big loans, and my sister is the genius, and she went to medical school and stuff. So we're low on the loan department, and I'm like, well, I'm not doing particularly well in school, and I don't particularly want to play in nightclubs. Like I had already quit, like by the time I was 17. Well, it seemed like a long time for me between 13 and 17 and playing in clubs. And that's when you
yeah,
could smoke in clubs. So every part of all my clothes all the time were just smelled like cigarettes in my hair. And just seeing, people get sloppy that line, I'm like, do I want to do this for like another, 20, 30 years? And not really. And the scholarships would have made a difference. So I got like some half scholarships to the University of Miami, but it still wasn't gonna. It's so expensive to go to school there. Um, so I'm like, I'm 17 years old, and I decided to do the Navy. See the world. We weren't in conflict at the time; it was still Cold War, and uh, and then I'd be out by the time I'm 21. So
yeah.
hopefully I'd go in there learning something because I didn't even know how to change a tire back then. I just knew how to play drums. I was okay in school, but uh, so when I got out of as I was while I was in the Navy, my last year in the Navy. I was in San Diego, and I heard I was walking around downtown, which is super seedy back then. Downtown San Diego was just it was scary. You're more likely to get mugged than to whatever. It was dangerous back then, especially for a
Yeah,
Navy person, because Navy people had the haircuts. Sometimes we had to wear a uniform if we went downtown, and
sure.
it's basically head shops and porn shops and bars, but the bars were like all dives, which a lot of Navy hangs. Like it was there were parts of it that were a cool hang too, but it's one of those things. If you went 2 blocks over, yeah, you're probably gonna get mugged or something.
Right, right. You had to keep
Uh,
your wits about you. Yeah.
exactly. So I'm walking around downtown and I hear these drums and I'm like, what is going on? Like, uh, I'd never heard anything like that before. Like, I grew up in Miami and I'm around like, bands and, different music from other countries, reggae and soca music, but I never heard like just drums. And I'm around a lot of salsa music and yeah, they have conga breaks down, but I never heard like just drums. And this was going on like for a while. I'm like, I'm gonna look for where those things are. So I go, I walk out by myself, not recommended. And I passed that first block. I'm like, oh, this might not be a good idea. But the drums were getting louder, so I'm like, let's go. So I went another like 4 blocks, and I all of a sudden I see this one night. It's like the only place that's open at night, and it's like a karate studio, and so I go over there, and then I see just this. There's an African drum class going on. It's all African American musicians and dancers, and I'm like, what did I just stumble on? This is amazing. And I want to say this is like 1989 or 1990, and just kind of blown away. So I'm watching it from the street, and they were still going for like another hour, and I just couldn't believe it. I was so excited. The rhythms were crazy, and I go after they're all done. I went to like compliment the drummers, like, "Wow, that's amazing music," and stuff like that. And then I went, and then I went, "By any chance, do you guys like, teach this drumming?" And they're like, "No." I'm
Not at
like,
all.
"Okay." Okay, all right. Well, thank you for the music. And it's like, at that point for that group, yeah, it was like they were doing more things for like the community rites of passage. Like it was very like community African American community oriented thing, and they were like, it was not a shareable thing for that moment for what I was asking. But the dance teacher came up to me and said, "Well, they're not teaching music for it, but this is a dance class. They're playing for this dance class, and if you want to come back, you're welcome to take the dance class." And I'm like, "I've never danced before, taking any dance class." And she's like, "Okay, but you're welcome." So I thought about it, and then I came back whenever I was in port, I would go do the dance class. And all the drummers were like way cool. They just like weren't teaching, that
Right.
part. What and they were so I got actually pretty good at it, and it was almost a better way for my introduction to the drumming because I could see how the drums speak with the dancer, and that communication with the drums and dance, you have to really listen to it as a dancer to know when to do a certain type of movement or
Yeah.
what is being called for, what is the drummer telling the dancer to do, and and having gotten pretty good on that, they found out at another event that we were at that I was a drum set player, and they would invite me to like barbecues and stuff, and
Mhm.
eventually a lot of those guys played other instruments and played jazz, so we would start playing jazz and incorporating the African drumming into it. And then eventually I started meeting musicians from Senegal and from Mali and from Ghana, and one of the professors that was teaching at University of San Marcos. I know there's a lot of information. He's from Ghana.
No, it's great.
He's from Ghana, but he became the director of the National Theater of Ghana, which shows off all their dances and traditional instruments. And he invited me to go to Ghana to learn and to play with other musicians there. And so eventually, just my interest kept going further. As far as like going to Haiti, there's a group called Boukman Experience who it was responsible. They're basically like the Bob Marley of Haitian music. And their music started a revolution down there in '94 for their first democratically elected president. And they came through San Diego and didn't have a place to stay. And one of my dancer friends, she was from Haiti, and she told me about this group. And at the time, I was living in a big house with 5 roommates. Everyone paying like $100 a month.
Yes, those were
And
big.
yeah, and we said they could stay with us, but we have to bring some mattresses and stuff. And after they stayed with us, they told me come down to Haiti and study this music, voodoo drumming of Haiti. That's their traditional music. And I'm like,
Cool.
wow, I'm really interested. Let's do that. And so as I've made a bunch of other trips, but basically it was being introduced to a world where how like in jam band world, lead the guitarist is king. They're
Right.
absolutely the kings of whatever band that they're in. And and in traditional voodoo music, the drums are not only guide the ceremonies, but they provide the passageways for the invisible world and the visible world to communicate, and for on a deeper level for the deities, your ancestors, to trade places for a while during a ceremony with, the relatives. And
Whoa.
it's like when you start getting into it, like on that basis, where you're not only providing an environment where you're dancing for, like, say, a 5 or 10 hour ceremony, but the things that are required to have happen during the ceremony, and the things that are required of you as a drummer, to participate. Like, as a drummer, you're not allowed to zone out. You're not allowed to, like, be like, you can give yourself to the music, but you're not allowed to get lost in it. Like sometimes that could be a big compliment. Dude, you were zoning out. Blah, blah, blah. But
Right, right.
yeah, right. And his eyes were rolling in the back of his head and stuff like
You were totally in another world. Yeah.
that.
Right.
Exactly. But as a drummer, like in a ceremony, that you're not even allowed to be a drummer if you're susceptible to that. So
Wow.
there's a whole, hundreds of years of history of music like that, and that type of music is represented, any village you go to in Africa who practices, traditional practices. It's the bond, like the drums are, they're the messengers, they're the communicators with the invisible world, and it's what brings the village together. It's what makes the village literally in a singular vibration. Because if you're out of vibration, and that's how a lot of people, they believe that that's how you get sick, is because you're not in tune, and then it's the drummer's responsibility to bring that person back into it.
Whoa.
Hey,
That's awesome. Oh my
there you
God.
go.
I didn't know
That's
we were
just
going
a,
to compare. That's
yeah,
amazing.
that's
Oh
just
my
the
God.
start. But yeah,
Yeah,
any.
that's great. I have a good friend who's came to Boulder from Ghana, and
Ah,
is a great drummer, and I can't wait to talk to him about that, about how the drummers, have that communication. I didn't know that, and to keep people healthy, to get them realigned, their vibration.
yeah, it's believed. Like, I had one teacher, Yaya Diallo. Uh, he, as a kid, his mom was the shaman of the village, and she would both do readings, but she would also make, like, she would make healing salves, out of leaves and stuff like that. But it was his job as a kid to take his drum, and if someone was kind of like sick, his mom would send him to follow that person all day while they worked in the, harvesting or something like that, and just play drums around them and notice their body language, and seeing how that they reacted to certain rhythms. And eventually, either that person would react in the form of like a dance to that. And then they would do something where they'd go back in the next big village gathering they'd play that person's rhythm. And that person would come in and everyone would learn that person's rhythm. And it's like you're welcoming back into, attaching them to the village, while at the same time expanding the sort of repertoire. It's a beautiful thing that you can add a new rhythm, a new dance to the village. So it becomes not only a way of welcoming back the sick person, but making them a person that guides them into their next evolution.
Wow. That's really amazing. And do you use some of these drums, different instruments within the string cheese incident that you've picked up along the way? Different instruments have you played sometimes, or
There's what I play, a tama. It's a little circular drum from Senegal. I can't say and I'll play a djembe from West Africa, and then I'll play the djembe with a stick on it, which emulates a drum from Senegal called sabar. But and we'll play some traditional. Oh, "Roll Around the Sun" is a sabar rhythm from at the top of the song. It's a sabar rhythm from Senegal, and but the thing about it is, like in popular music, it's not necessarily trying to play something on the drums to make, an audience go into trance, like it, because
right?
it's such a different responsibility and location. And it's actually like not a place for guitars and not a
True,
place
true.
for, uh, uh,
Yeah.
it's it's something different. But if you go to like Boukman Experience from Haiti, the reason why they got so popular is because one of the things from colonialism, one of the things that started the revolution down there was people being like, no, you should be proud of your voodoo heritage. Like it's so villainized in the movies as like the zombie thing, and which is the voodoo in that sense is the equivalent of like Christianity if you only talked about the devil all the time and you thought that Christianity was like, oh, that's where Satan burns everything and you're in hell, or whatever that version is. And it's like, no, voodoo is like this beautiful, amazing, like artistic, like uh uh like event when you're in it's like all of this art is happening. The priest has like this kind of like corn mushed corn that he draws all these symbols on the ground. And yes, they're religious symbols, just like in Christianity. Painting the Sistine Chapel is all religious symbol, but it's gorgeous the way that it's put together. And so I think that's the can be the misconception is that in the thing about colonialism was to shut down or to minimize the traditional practices of
Mm,
the people that were taken from their lands. And so so when you experience the other side of it, and yes, there's things like possessions, like you have in churches have possessions too, and it's not necessarily always in an evil way. Sometimes uh, but the possession that I see is more just like you see this little kid who's maybe like 8 years old, and all of a sudden maybe he's being possessed, but the way he's being possessed is by like his grandfather who passed away. So all of a sudden he's lighting up a cigar. There's little 8 year olds right and talking, just slurring and yelling at everybody and like he's the boss, like, oh,
wow.
that's old crazy grandpa again,
Oh, that old
Yeah,
crazy grandpa,
old
that
crazy
8-year-old.
grandpa's back, and that's almost just more like a thing like I'm here, like, rather than it doesn't have to be some deep meaning taken like the world is gonna end. It's just
Right.
like we're here with you. We're always with you.
Absolutely. And that's what it's about. And that's what I think
Yeah.
to bring it all full circle. I mean, I feel like string cheese is raising the vibrations of the community. That's like it's healing music. Every time I go to see one of these shows, I feel like on a different vibration when I'm done. You guys lift us up, and it's really important. I think obviously just all the time, but especially now, people have been struggling. The wildfires, the inauguration, the just the hard times, COVID. We're still healing from being separate from people for so long. So thank you for continuing to bring that mindset to the band and to keep evolving.
Right on. Band is all about, you bringing your best version of yourself, and then you're gonna run into other people that are the best versions of themselves, and then you help each other along the way, and you have a really fun night in the process. And we talk about that a lot, that we're lucky to have fans that bring it like that, and we want to keep bringing those kinds of vibes on our part.
I love that. You might have seen my shoulder shimmy because I was like, oh, I
Yeah,
feel
Jimmy Shoulder.
goosebumps. Yeah, it's nice. I mean, it really is. The connection between the audience and the band is so important, and I love that you guys embrace us and are bringing it. Again, a nice big tour is coming this way. You got dates at Red Rocks, like you said. We've got Salt Shed coming up.
Let's
Um,
go.
yeah, we're really excited about it. I did have one listener who was asking for a request, and I told him I put it in here just for you. It's for I think maybe like the North Carolina shows more so. Something about walking in Memphis. You want?
Oh, you've come across Trash Panda.
Yes, I have. And her whole crew.
Well, to be fair, Michael King totally owes them a walking in Memphis.
That's
I
what
don't
I
know.
thought.
Yeah, he owes them, and I think he should live up to his obligation. They totally saved our butts out of Asheville getting to the airport. And at first, they were in no position to drive, but about an hour and a half later, they were in a good position to drive. And they made a deal, like we would get you to the airport, and you can make your flight, but will you play walking in Memphis? And Kang's like, yeah. And I'm like, let's see this follow through.
I love that. I
I
love that.
can't.
I heard. I heard that story this morning from a good friend of mine, Matt, who lives out in the Colorado area. And he said, as you guys were in the car, and he was like, "Give me your Venmo, I want to pay you for this ride." And he said, "No, I just want to hear Walking in Memphis," which is not your tune, right? This is like an old traditional tune.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, that's like
cover.
Mark. Come on, who's that guy walking to Memphis? Mark
I
somebody.
know. I looked it up. But Kang put his shoes up on the lap of Trash Panda, which were blue suede shoes at the time, and said, "Yeah, I got you at some point." So, yeah, Kang, you owe us a little something in Nashville, or
He
we'll
owes
be.
everybody, but especially those guys. Well, Mark Cohen. Mark Cohen.
That's his name. Yes. Oh man, it's been a pleasure hanging out with you. You're super fun and so worldly and cool, and I just love picking your brain. So we'll have to do this again sometime.
Thanks for the awesome questions, Megan. You are so on top of your game. It's like,
Hey,
yeah,
thanks.
you're the one. Thank you so much and representing
Um,
Chicago like you do.
No problem. Absolutely. I got to give it up to Carrie too. She really helped us make this happen, and she's the
Yeah.
brain. She's got all these awesome ideas. So thank
Well,
you, Carrie, for helping me with questions. Thank you, Jason, for taking the time, and we'll see you in just about a week, man. We're excited.
let's go, Megan. Can't wait to catch up with you out there.
Awesome. Have a great day.
You too. Take care.
Thank you so much. It's WZRD Chicago 88.